Alrighty, so we do have a little break between the two CONCACAF Champions Cup first round leg two matchup, and when I say a little break, it's not really that much because at the time of this recording, there's about 12 minutes before the next game is going to kick off. I'm gonna do a rapid fire news of the week episode and look at the news that has happened in the past week, and we start off with the U.S. Open Cup. So looks like there is sources that is proving what we thought that it was going to happen, where there's going to be only 8 MLS teams going to be participating in this competition, and that to determine who's going to be the 8 MLS team, it seems like it's going to be the top 7 in the overall standings that is not participating in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And then, of course, the defending U.S. Open Cup champion, Houston Dynamo, will get the defender crown as the team that will participate in this competition. Now, I have also heard that there is report that the remaining team probably is going to put MLS Next Pro team in there because that was kind of what we thought was going to happen. Where originally it looks like this U.S. Open Cup and MLS saga started with all these MLS team pulling out their first team and just kind of putting their Next Pro team in this competition as replacement. Either way, it's not going to please anyone. I mean, this situation is very messy, and I've already mentioned that it didn't have to be very messy if the league actually take the initiative. And I feel like right now you can also clearly see the league is not acknowledging the US Open Cup. Like all the promo that is going on. And even if you of course work in the media of MLS, you haven't heard anybody has mentioned the US Open Cup. Like I even listen to the Extra Time Radio podcast every single week, and I haven't heard anybody from the podcast have said anything about the US Open Cup. And it's kind of sad to see that MLS is clearly censoring the US Open Cup, even though it's pretty clear that that shouldn't be happening, and that I've said before with this saga, this probably shouldn't have happened if they thought about maybe expanding the roster, and maybe even think about restructuring how teams is going to be to deal with the fixture congestion that is going on. And now I think with the way that whatever how MLS is going to do with putting their team in the US Open Cup, there's going to be teams and fans that is going to potentially boycott the Leeds Cup, and that this Leeds Cup should be very interesting. I do think that the attendance probably is still going to be strong, especially if it's going to be these Liga MX teams that have a big fan base. So teams like Chivas and Club America, those games are always going to be sold out, no matter what. But there's no doubt that I think down the line there could be that discussion of the fact that, yeah, I mean, the fans have kind of been spoken. They hate this Leeds Cup kind of thing, and this Leeds Cup thing is clearly a money grab. And I understand that in the day of age that money obviously is important now, but money should not be a thing that can take away the heritage that we see in the US Open Cup. Like it's sad that this is kind of the way the game is going right now, where it feels like more times or not just in MLS but really around the world, where money is now start to take over in terms of what the heritage of the US Open Cup is. I mean, I keep telling people that it's hard to believe that MLS does not respect the US Open Cup, even though this is one of the oldest domestic cup competition, not only in the U.S. but in the entire world in general. But now moving on, we have MLS and PRO, so they have failed to reach an agreement on the first day of mediation. So obviously we still have the lockout between the referee and MLS. Now, based on the first week in terms of these replacement referee, yeah, let's just say that yes, there were definitely some controversial call. I think the most controversial one was the Delgado second yellow card, where I even mentioned before that. I mean, I guess that with the way that Delgado kind of slides in like that, you always risk yourself getting a second yellow card. But when I look at it, I just feel like, you know what? I think I do agree with most people have said that there should be no way that is worth a yellow card. And even Sergio Busquets, the one that was on the receiving end of this, have even said that probably shouldn't have been a second yellow card, and it's going to be interesting to see whether or not if the Galaxy is going to win this appeal for Delgado's second in yellow. I don't know if you can even appeal to the league in terms of a player getting a second yellow and reverse it, but we shall see as the days come. So long whether if the league decide to reverse that decision and he'll be available in that Cali Clasico game against the Quakes. But yeah, it is pretty clear that as much as I know everybody doesn't like the pro referee. Yeah, the replacement referee isn't really making things any better. There's been also numerous missed call. I think there's even one notable missed call besides the Delgado situation where I think it was in the game between the Quakes and FC Dallas where the linesman basically they raised the flag or the center ref basically said it's offside, even though there literally was a Dallas player like just sprinting back after getting some medical treatment, and yeah, that should not be offside in the rule book. And of course, we also saw the fact that the VAR looks in some of these games was way too long with these replacement referee. Either way, we'll see whether or not when are they going to reach an agreement. Obviously, I'm also not surprised that they didn't reach it in the first day of mediation. Usually, you don't get an agreement reaching a labor agreement on the first day of mediation unless you have some good faith that's reached between both parties. And it's pretty clear that both Pro and MLS and the union does not have good faith right now. They do not like what's going on with reaching this labor agreement, and I won't be surprised. It might take a while for them to eventually reach agreement, or it could take a while in terms of that this could maybe become an an agreement being reached if we have a fail Mary situation. I've said many times before with these replacement referee, I would not be surprised we're going to see a fail Mary situation or multiple fail Mary situation where maybe this is where Pro of course have to say, okay, let's just settle our difference and let's get back to play. But we'll see whether that of course is the case because Pro have said before and some of these referee have said before they do not like the current labor agreement that they've reached, especially they feel like they're still way underpay in terms of of the salary that they earn. And I agree. Like when you look at the salary some of these referee are earning, they're getting way underpaid. Now, MLS owner have meet in Miami to discuss the roster rule and potential increase of investment. So again, this goes back to what I said before, how it feels like MLS should have done this in the off season, but at least now it seems like they acknowledge the situation. And Don Gabber have mentioned the fact that they might think about expanding the roster rule, but obviously that's just all talk. We don't know if it indeed is going to be the case. I mean, in an ideal world, I hope it is the case, but obviously, I would not be surprised if they come out of this meeting and they just say, well, everything is going to be fine. Because right now, I think there is definitely that problem of whether or not should we be thinking about keeping the league with parity, or the fact that we need to not only keep the league with parity, but also allow teams to spend more money and expand the roster rule because this fixture congestion right now that MLS team is dealing with this limited roster kind of thing that they have to comply with the league roster rule is just kind of holding back in terms of these teams and is the whole reason why we have this U.S. Open Cup saga that is going on right now. Now, St. Louis City, they have announced that they have signed sporting director Litz Finistil to a new contract extension. Not a big surprise because I mean he is probably one of the best sporting director in the league right now, and after the success that they had last season, there's no surprise that they decided to sign him to a new contract, especially with all the moves that he made in the expansion season. Not only most of them have turned out to be a hit, but they end up having one of the best expansion season that any MLS team has ever had. And then Toronto FC have waived Adama Diamande and signed defender Nixon Gomez. Now, obviously, with Diamande, it was always weird the fact that he decided to come to TFC, and the only reason why he came is because Bob Bradley is there, and that he basically is a Bob Bradley guy. But injuries, of course, has kind of hamstring him in a way where he didn't really make too much impact to this Toronto FC team. So it's to no surprise that once Bob Bradley is no longer with this team, and knowing the fact that TFC is in the midst of trying to shred as much contract as possible and trying to get rid of the old regime in terms of the dead weight that's linger in this roster, that that this is definitely one of the pieces that they're trying to get rid of. Now, in terms of their defender Nixon Gomez, he's a player that is still relatively young, and that this is probably just for a more depth reason, and maybe one that could be the future in terms of this deep rebuild that this Toronto FC team is going through. And speaking of teams that is trying to shred some contract, a bad team to do so, the Colorado Rapids also doing the same thing. They're waive Alex Gersberg and Sydney Tavares in terms of their contract. Again, two of these guys never really made too much impact to this Rapids team, so no surprise that they decided to waive their contract. And I also want to congratulate Peter Vermees of reaching 500 matches as the coach of Sporting KC. He's the only MLS head coach to reach 500 match with a single team, so certainly congratulate Peter Vermees. And it's hard to believe that he's been with this team for so long now, despite the fact that, for the past couple of years, even though things were a little rocky for this team, there's no doubt that I think Peter Vermees is going to be with the Sporting KC team, no matter what. Like, unless if Sporting KC really took a nosedive similar to what we saw in the first 10 game of the season and continue throughout, there's no way this front office is going to fire Peter Vermees. I mean, that loyalty that Peter Vermees and the Sporting KC front office have shown throughout the years, it will be really a shocking news if we will hear one day that Peter Vermees is being fought by Sporting KC. I mean, I would say that eventually I know this relationship is going to come to an end, because of the way that I know some Sporting KC fans wants a new fresh face into the team to re-energize the team. But sometimes that's not always easy to do. We've seen some teams that I have come off of a reign where they have a head coach that's been there for a long time, but when they do go through the transition, it's not as smooth as people have seen. So yeah, there's no doubt that for Peter Remis, he's going to be there as long as he wants until he probably decide to call it a quit. But the fact that he reached 500 matches as a head coach in Sporting KC in a single team, I mean that is pretty impressive, especially in the day of age with how head coaches seems like they come and go every single season. Now, the Portland Timbers, they have announced that they have terminated their shirt sponsor, Debrella, after there's some controversy surrounding Debrella. Seems like there is some charges that is being made in terms of some of the upper management of Debrella. So I think there's like one of their former CEO have been charged with sexual assaults and so far or so much of that. But yeah, the Timbers again, it's things have not gone well with this team in terms of the front office for the past couple years, and this is just the latest of that. Now, at least this time they admit that they made that mistake, and they at least decided to end that relationship right away. Unlike the certain thing that happened just a couple of years ago where they let it drag down. But now it's going to be interesting to see whether or not if these Timbers jersey is going to actually get a discount, because yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to look for a new shirt sponsor, but I think that this in some way it's kind of a good thing where you decide to pull the shirt sponsor there, you maybe get like a discount from the jersey that still have that shirt sponsor. Although I don't know you can do that in MLS, because I think the MLS store is going to pull any Portland Timbers jersey, especially the new one that I really want to get with the tree on its side. They probably pull any of those jerseys that doesn't have the Debrella shirt sponsor. And in some way, I kind of like the look without the shirt sponsor. I think if I remove that shirt sponsor, and if they can just move the Timbers logo to the right, it actually could be a really nice jersey. Then and it could be one that I would even say could be top five in the league. But as I mentioned before, one of the problem I have with the new Timbers jersey is the logo being in the center. Just don't like that, and also the shirt sponsor not really putting in a really good place. Now, moving on, we got the Seattle Sounders have announced that they have signed Ozzy Alonso to a one-day contract to retire in Rave Green, and that's going to be happening on the opening match that the Sounders are going to be having at Lumen Field. This is not a big surprise. I mean, Ozzy Alonso is a Sounders legend. I would not be surprised that they might even build a statue outside of Lumen's Field with Ozzy Alonso there. I mean, he's pretty much Mr. Seattle Sounders. I mean, I know things didn't quite end it the way that he wanted. I even mentioned it before in my career video where there seems like some turmoil that going on that kind of ended the relationship relatively sour. But there's no doubt that if you ask any Seattle Sounders fan of who is their most favorite player and who is considered to be a legend of the Sounders team, it's gonna be Ozzy Alonso. I mean, he's been there since day one, and he's a guy that I'm glad the Sounders decided to cherish him and at least kind of have a happy ending compared to what we saw when he was let go, and that from what we heard, it seems like there was some ugly relationship problem between him and the front office that kind of end his time with the Seattle Sounders. And then the U.S. men's national team have announced that they will play Brazil for the prep of the Copa America match. Now they said that it is not really a preparation for the Copa America match. Apparently, they said that it's kind of like an intercontinental kind of showcase and stuff like that. But we all know this is a prep for a Copa America match, and we'll see how it's going to do. I mean, I don't expect them to win this one because Brazil is Brazil. Though I will say that Brazil has been struggling lately, especially in the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifier, and that this is probably one of the weaker Brazil team that we've seen in the past, not just a couple of years, but really the past decade or two. But it should be a good challenge for the U.S., especially with the way that once they do get into Copa America, they do have some really tough opponent that they're going to be facing in Copa America, especially against the team that beat them in the Gold Cup semifinal last year with Panama, Uruguay, and then I think there was another team that is going to be weight them in terms of the Copa America group stage match. And there's no doubt that the expectation for the U.S. in the Copa America is going to be big, especially with the way that them being the host, and that we've seen before with these confederation kind of tournament being the host, you usually gets the boost of going deeper into the tournament. I mean, in some cases, we saw Qatar winning the whole thing, being the host. But I don't expect the U.S. to win the whole thing. But I'm just expecting them to go deep in this tournament, especially similar to what we saw the last time when Copa America was in the U.S., where the U.S. actually did go all the way to the semifinal before bowing out to eventual winner Argentina. Now, moving on, or actually no, not eventual winner Argentina. I forgot. Chile actually won that tournament. Chile actually beat Argentina in the final. That is. But moving on, so we got MLS report that they are going to be hosting MLS All Star again, or no, MLS All Star. I'm sorry. Again, this is what happened when I decided to write things very fast to prepare for this News of the Week episode. But it seems like they're going to be hosting Liga MX All Star again in Columbus for the All Star game on July 17th. Now, I don't mind the fact that they decided to host the Liga MX All Star again. I do enjoy it when they decide to do that, and it's definitely better than hosting a European team that is just prepping for their preseason. But that being said, I would love the fact that they would go back to the East versus West format, especially with the way that if this All Star game is taking place in Columbus, and Columbus is one of the places where it's a team that has been in the league since its inception, and it would be a great way to basically play the All Star game in a place that has an MLS team since its inception to go back to the East versus West format. But unfortunately, we're not going to see that. We're going to see MLS All Star versus Liga MX All Star again, and don't be surprised. This might be one of the most expensive MLS All Star game in recent history because a certain guy from Miami and certain Argentine number 10 potentially could be playing in this game, and tickets are going to be really hot if that of course is the case, even if he's just probably going to be playing like 30 minutes in that game. And then USL have announced that they will have 35 national broadcast games throughout CBS Sports Network and ESPN Network. It's hard to believe that of all the games that's going to broadcast nationally, that USL has more games than what MLS broadcasts. But that obviously is mainly because MLS have signed their TV contract with Apple TV, and that's going to be the case at least for the next decade or so. And that I've always said that as much as I like the fact that they signed this contract, and that not only now that you'll be able to watch MLS game without cable, but also you can actually watch your team play without any restriction in terms of the regional broadcast, because there's some teams that have regional broadcast that not a lot of people have access to it. But the problem is that unfortunately, you don't have like the national broadcast game. You don't get that exposure as we've seen before. But then again, you could also argue that ESPN and Fox doesn't really do a good job in that in the first place. And I remember how bad ESPN and Fox, and especially Fox, does when it comes to broadcasting these MLS game. And that in some way, maybe I'm glad the fact that it is now on Apple TV, especially the quality at Apple TV is much better than what you see in the Fox broadcast. But still, for the USL, this is definitely a big thing, and this is another thing that will continue to grow the exposure to this league, even though this is still just a second division league in U.S. soccer. And then all of Argentina group stage game in Copa America has officially sold out, with resale prices double the face value. And in general, if you want to go to these Copa America game, if it's going to be some of these big team playing the group stage, yeah, get ready to really spend a pretty penny, because some of these tickets are just ridiculously expensive. Like most of these U.S. games, I would say that is relatively cheap. Though I say it's relatively cheap, but most of them are still at least $100 and so forth. But I'm not surprised that of course is the case. I knew that the price is going to be really expensive, especially in the 2016 version. Prices were pretty expensive for those Copa America game as well. So now with the way that inflation continued to be crazy, and that that the cost is going to be expensive, it's going to be interesting to see. And I also won't be surprised some of these Copa America game will not sold out whatsoever. Like I think the only games in terms of these Copa America that really will sold out are these games that feature some well-known team like Argentina, Brazil, or even Uruguay, so forth, or even if Mexico, of course, are playing, because any Mexico game in the U.S. is always going to be sold out, especially if one of them is going to be in Los Angeles, which, by the way, I'm actually going to be attending that one between Mexico and Venezuela at SoFi, and there's no doubt that's going to be sold out no matter what. But yeah, again, no, don't be surprised if some of these games that there might be some empty seats, just like what we saw on the last Copa America, because it's just ridiculously expensive. And as much as why many people question CONMEBOL decided to do this, even though they're not going to fill up the stands. Well, at the end of the day, if you charge people a lot of money and you can at least fill in some sort of the stands, or at least are able to sold out some of these marquee matchup in bigger stadium, you still make a profit compared to just decided to lower the prices and fill out the stands. I mean, I know that kind of doesn't make sense, but if you think about it, if you do the math, if you charge people a lot of money, and that some people are still able to afford it to go, even if the stands are going to be 70% full, it's going to be much more profit compared to if you charge the price a little lower. And while you can fill up the entire stands, you're probably not going to get as much profit as you would get if you charge a little bit more, if you don't exactly fill too much of the stands. Now, obviously, that math can be tricky if you do it in both way. But this is a channel. It's not about math, and I don't want to dig into that rabbit hole in terms of all that situation that's going on. But either way, lastly, I want to talk about the power rankings. So obviously, every single news of the week, we'll talk about the power rankings in terms of which team is in the top 10, and I'm gonna just kind of go speed through this power rankings. I won't really mention too much about where each team and my feelings of each team in the power rankings, because it is power rankings, and this is also the reason why I've said before I don't do power rankings anymore, because all it does is just get people mad because their team is not number one, or they're too low in the standings. Even though it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But at number one, we got the Columbus Crew, the defending MLS Cup champion, being there. And then we got LAFC at number two, FC Cincinnati at number three, Inter Miami at number four, Seattle at number five, Dallas at number six, Philadelphia Union at number seven, Orlando at number eight, the Portland Timbers at number nine, and Atlanta United finish up the top 10 in the power ranking in 10th place. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of this News of the Week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this News of the Week episode? And if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below as always. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.